My name is Anis, and I'm going to take you through the threshold effect and why it's actually cool. So, what is the difference between the threshold effect and a black and white effect? Well, this is fairly straightforward. Black and white is essentially stripping your image of all kinds of saturation. Meanwhile, threshold is isolating your image to what is referred to as a bitonal range. And what is bitonal? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's splitting your image between two tones, and that is essentially black and white. So right here, what has happened is that the threshold has isolated the black and white levels of the image rather than throwing away the saturation. And now you can see that the black and whites are more pronounced. And if you look at this already, this image is actually looking pretty cool, if I might say so myself. But there's a lot that you can do with this effect. So if I go over to solid, right? I'm just going to throw in a solid layer, and let's say I give the solid somewhere, somewhat of a reddish color, and I hover over to the blending modes. Now, I could potentially pick either multiply or color burn or even darken, since all these three work pretty well with black and white images. Color burn is probably the contrasty of all three. Now, let's go ahead and explore them just a little bit. Darken, you can see that the red has been splashed over the black and lighter areas, but it's a little soft and not really much, not something that I'd like to use. Multiply is a bit of a more balanced look that you can get, although for me personally, I prefer color burn because of this, because of the contrast that you see. And of course, I can manipulate the values of the threshold to soften this a little bit, and just maybe raise the transition, bring out the whiteness. Of course, these levels of transition and median, which is essentially a median effect applied to your threshold, is not something you would find in Vegas Pro. This is an image processing app, so this is a more sophisticated kind of threshold. But not to get too much into this, now we have an image where it's a hot red. Of course, you're not limited to just a red. If I go over back to the solid and switch over to the content and change to some lighter colors, maybe even somewhere that's to the yellowish green. How about this? Is a bit of a sick image, literally, so I think I'm just going to go for the colder colors and raise this a little bit. Looks like something that you could put in a perfume ad. If I go ahead and just play around with the luminance and the threshold just a little bit. Now, remember, you could always apply one more thing before we go. We could always work with gradients. Now, this could be a bit of on the creative side. And let's say if I had one side being reddish and the other side being somewhere towards the colder colors. Now you have something like this. And if I go ahead and manipulate this a little bit, say pull the points of the colder colors away, now you have an image that looks like that. Go back, play around with the threshold, you have something like this. How about that? Not too shabby. Maybe a little transition. Yeah. Play around with this.